What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Scale News Update. If you're not familiar with the show, this is where we talk about the news topics that happened in the scale world of RC over the past week. If you enjoy the Scale News Update regularly, hit the like button. Let's jump into this week's topics. First for this week, something that's not totally in the scale world, but interesting nonetheless. Traxxas just released the Mini XRT. Now this was released just a couple of hours ago. At least it hit their website just a couple of hours ago. So I haven't seen release videos or anything like that just yet, but you know, Traxxas kind of releasing more of these small scale vehicles is somewhat interesting in the way that, you know, we used to see them with the Mini Revo and some of those, but these are a little bit more serious, it would seem, as the price would reflect. $369 for this. It's a 3S capable 55 mile an hour small scale basher. But at that same point, that's only like $10 cheaper than their new brushless 4x4 Jado, which is a pretty impressive looking car at that point. It's just interesting to see the prices of the scales as they're going. We're starting to see, you know, larger scale things that are less money and smaller scales that are more. And I don't know, it's just an interesting thing to watch as the releases come out in different times. And sometimes you just think that a vehicle that's been out for a longer period of time may just be at a lower price point because, you know, that's when it was released and it hasn't made sense to adjust it from there. But nonetheless, you know, watching vehicle releases and seeing where the price points slot in makes for some interesting discussion. Not disgusting. Anyway, so yeah, this new Mini XRT looks like a fun basher. I can imagine 3S capable, 55 miles an hour. Not bad at that, but $369 does surprise me for this size. But the size may also be a bit deceiving because the XRT itself is so huge that it really makes this thing look tiny if you don't put them in proportion to each other all that well. So maybe it's not as small as it initially appears from the images to me, but it looks good. I love the way that it looks. That's why I thought maybe I'd go ahead and throw it in the scale news, especially since it just came out right before I was filming. And then speaking of the small scale, how about the smallest scale? HPI releasing the TTR 1969 Mustang. TTR tabletop racer, nano-TTR specifically is what they're calling this thing. And this is a 1/64 scale, fully proportional, lipo-powered RC. I actually got a chance to drive this a couple of months ago or something like that, and was pretty impressed at the time for something that tiny to have steering that felt, you know, good, not just reasonable, but good. I've driven the turbo hobbies, like the drift cars that they had before. I never really raced their normal tabletop racers, however you want to classify them. But this felt great, and it's not just another turbo hobbies small scale car. So it is their own deal, their own platform. Matt from Scale Builders Guild did release his review video on it, and he showed racing it around on a little desktop track that he made. And even with Matt's driving skills, it looked wildly maneuverable on a very tight course. So kind of impressive on that side. And it does sound like HPI is going to be releasing a number of other body sets for this, possibly a Porsche based on their comments in the YouTube videos. So I'm here for that. USB-C chargeable, full-size regular radio, which absolutely dwarfs the rest of the car. And in the photo that I've used for the image here, you can see it next to a 1/10 scale RC wheel, which really puts this thing into perspective. It's the size of a Hot Wheel. So, you know, Matt opened up his video showing it next to a bunch of them, being like, one of these is an RC, which is a great comparison and a cool little just blends in. It just looks it's not out of proportion, out of scale, anything like that. So it will be cool to see if people can do some Hot Wheels body swaps and how that will affect or change the vehicle dynamics, putting a die-cast body on top of what is currently a molded hard plastic body with functioning lights though. And you can toggle them on and off from a functional third channel on the radio. A lot of features packed into this little thing. Pretty cool to see. And let's just get all of the small scale stuff out of the way. Proline just released a 1/28 scale VW Bug for the Micro T. Always loved that combination on the old Micro Mini Ts back in the day. This just brought back a lot of memories. I thought it looked super cool and figured, again, while I throwing a bunch of stuff out there this week that doesn't normally fit in the scale news. So this one, but that's it. That's the end of the random stuff, I think. Couple of new ones from Knight Customs. First, he's got 2 new helmet options for the movable or like the animated style, like Hoonigan or Hooni interiors, however he refers to them. But these are a very, race car style helmet. There's 2 versions of it, one with a visor built into it, so you print it with the visor, the other without, so you can actually see the driver's eyes and bridge of his nose and that type of thing. So if you have one of those interiors and you'd like to put something in there that you feel is more appropriate, then these are available on there. The other new one from Knight Customs is one of the F1 driver sets. This is a cockpit and halo situation. These are mainly made for like the Montec bodies that are often used in the RC F1 racing. The F1 league, at least here in the US, is run by Aaron Lane, who was formerly of Element, did a lot of the Elements design. He now is who runs that organization. So he worked with Knight Customs, obviously an existing relationship, and thought this would be a cool addition. Need a few pieces of hardware to get this mounted into one of those Montec bodies and make those bodies look much more appropriately scaled to modern F1 cars, which I'm of course a fan of. I'll put a link down in the description below where you can find those files available from Knight Customs in case you want to print them yourself. But if you don't, you can always go to somebody like Thread and Resin, who is this month's sponsor of the Scale News Update. Thread and Resin will do the Knight Customs contract printing. You can go there, find the Knight Customs files that he already has listed on his site, or you can look at some of these other ones and have them printed through Thread and Resin. They also have files from other makers that they will print and ship for you. And on top of that, they've got a bunch of really cool merch. It's like bumper stickers, scale bumper stickers, which this week they released a new sheet of, which has a bunch of pretty funny ones, a lot of which are jokes that come from Livestream Takeover. So if you would like to go shopping on Thread and Resin, he also has a coupon code, which I am not going to say out loud, but I will put it down in the description below. So if you want to save some money on some merch or some 3D prints, check out Thread and Resin. And again, there's a coupon code down in the description that you can use, and it comes from an inside joke on Livestream Takeover. I'm not explaining it any further than that. Thank you to Thread and Resin for sponsoring this month of the Scale News Update. Next, let's jump into some discussion about some events. First, hitting Axial Fest. Now, Axial Fest has got 2 events this year. No longer do we have an Axial Fest West, but we have Axial Fest Badlands, which happens in Indiana at Badlands Off-Road Park. And there's been a bunch of comments and posts about that event specifically. Now, Axial Fest has never been good about getting information out to people, at least not since Horizon has taken over. It's just a fact of the matter, and it is what it is. They're not good about getting information to people in a concise, accessible, logical way. It's like scattered or non-existent, and a little bit of that is happening with Badlands now. Tickets for Axial Fest Badlands went up on Eventbrite, but currently show sold out. And there wasn't like a good notification of when those ticket sales were going to be made available or anything like that. I even went back and tried to find information in general, and it's just, I don't see anything. There's not like an official event page on Facebook, which is like the easiest way to get information to most people these days. I know some people don't use Facebook, but it's better than nothing. They have an official website called, theaxialfest.com, I believe is what it is, which just leads you to a web page on Horizon's site where there's a Badlands section, and on there's very little information. There's like some information about like what tickets are going to cost, but no link or information about when they were going to go up, anything like that. Just very odd. And at this point, we said the tickets show sold out on Eventbrite, but there's still no information available about when tickets are going to be available or if they're going to be available for people to just show up and purchase. There's people who have cabin reservations and things like that now they're without a ticket and without a great amount of knowledge. Not sure if people have reached out specifically and got better information, but I wasn't able to find any myself, as most people would, where they would be looking, I feel, as well. Now, I haven't got a hold of anybody yet as far as information on that, but something that I may try and follow up on and see what is going on. It was a bit unfortunate to get a handful of messages myself about this thing, and I didn't know anything about it, but just doing my own digging, saw very little, which is a bit of like I said, it's a bit disappointing. And moving on from that in general, hopefully we find some information. Hopefully there's an official post from the crew at Axial Fest, or on the webpage at least, that they use as a link to give you guys more information about that, if there will be tickets available, day of, that type of thing. So hopefully we see some follow-up information from the crew that is running that event. Next, the other Axial Fest that is new for this year is Axialfest Europe. And there was a post from the Recon G6 page, which again, it's not an Axial Fest page, so it's just another place that is putting out this information about it, saying that Axial Fest Europe is now going to be open to all brands, which is, it's odd in a way, because that's not what Axial Fest ever was. I loved Axial Fest, and when I went to Axial Fest, I took my Axial vehicles because that was always how it was framed. An Axial customer appreciation event. So bring your Axial cars. Some people didn't like that, but it made sense. Horizon had other signature events that were open to all brands, but an Axial Fest was made for Axial vehicles. And they had cited Axial Fest West was not going to happen because of decline in attendance and things like that, which possibly could have been solved if you're now interested, or fine with opening it up to all brands. That could completely change the the landscape of an event. So it's just interesting to see the divergence of how these events have been handled and what is going on. It's I don't fully understand that. I wish that was not the case. And I think that the events still have plenty of opportunity to be amazing events. Proline by the Fire, also run by a lot of the same crew, I believe, typically has very good information, scheduling, ticket sales, the stuff just seems to be more available, which I just don't fully understand, because it's the same company running both events. Just don't get it. And then lastly, Beat the Creek, which is this coming weekend. And I am going to attend the event. I will be there and hope to see a bunch of you there as well. That event has a very active group page with a bunch of good information, like daily posts from the organizers with schedules and, guidelines that they want people to follow. A bunch of just interesting, good information that is pretty easy to find in a pretty logical way. I like it, and I'm excited to go, and I hope that the weather keeps improving, because it doesn't look super comfortable leading up, but we'll get through it, and I'm going to have fun again. I hope to see a bunch of you there. But if you're not able to go to that event and you still want to see more, you should check out the channel membership, because there's more there to see. Segue. Channel membership helps support the channel a little bit extra. You see videos early, like Scale News Update the night before. You get additional videos that are just kind of behind the scenes stuff. And you also get extra videos like After News Delight, which is an extension of this show. Just kind of goes back over the topics, talk about it a little bit more candidly, and usually add some other topics here in as well. If you're interested in channel membership, there's a link down in the description below, and you can find out all about it. Thank you to all of you who watch regardless. This Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, come watch Livestream Takeover with Matt and I. We'll go over a little bit of what my event prep has looked like before my trip to Beat the Creek. We'll see how ahead of it I am. Totally been working on it. And lastly, if you work for an RC company and like to see any of your products on the Scale News Update, you can shoot me an email to news@harleydesigns.com. Include a photo, a description, and a link to where we'll be able to find it on your website, either now or in the future. And take a look at that, see if we can get it onto the Scale News. And then it felt like it had been weeks since we'd had an RC10 re-release, but the drought is over. We've got a new one. This is the RC10 Brian Kinwald edition. Still an RC10, mainly blacked out. The body shown on the press photos is painted up with Brian Kinwald's livery that he used, but it comes with a clear body. So you will have to paint it, but it does come with a decal set that has, indicates what edition it is. Underneath, it appears that most of the rest of the truck is the same, but black, maybe with a few differences here and there. So, another RC10 re-release. It just haven't got to say that in a few weeks. So there you go. And then Kyosho also released a 4-wheel drive Turbo Optima Mid Special this week. I don't know anything about it. I really don't know anything about the RC10s either, but it felt like if I covered the RC10 thing, I probably should cover this Kyosho as well. It's a 4-wheel drive. I can tell you that part's different. And then for those of you that are interested in learning CAD, I decided to bring STL Sunday back in a non-live format. So now doing it in an edited video style. And I've posted that up on the channel already on the member side, but it will go live on Sunday. So since it's called STL Sunday, that's when I've got it scheduled to go live. So I'm gonna bring that back and I'm gonna try and keep it going as best I can, again, in an edited way, so it's a little bit more digestible than the longer live videos. Feel like maybe that will help people a little bit more. Mainly going through projects, small projects of things that I need myself and feel like could be a good learning experience for some of you. I really enjoy CAD and do like to share that stuff, even if it's not the most popular content that I've ever made. So if you're interested in that, watch for it this Sunday, or channel members can go see it now. This week, while checking all of the sites for new releases, I ran across a couple of posts about shipments possibly being paused to the US being affected by the tariff situation. First, I read Scorch RC Parts post. Now, Scorch RC Parts is based out of the UK, and they have parts, as they state in their post about it, manufactured kind of all over. Some of them there locally, some of them in Europe, some of them in Asia. Now, because of that, there is an interesting thing, at least coming from the UK, where there's a $50 minimum if you have components that are affected by the tariffs. So they gave a example in their post that you could buy some parts they make in-house that would not be affected by any of the tariff type stuff. And if you shipped those to the US, you'd have your regular shipping fee, regular parts pricing, and that's it. But if you just ordered a couple of tiny parts, might be, $8 was their example. But since there is a minimum, it would take if you had $50 worth of this and $8 worth of screws, it would now add $50 on top, as that would be the minimum effect. That was something that I did not know or had not heard of at that point. So it would take a $58 order and make it $108. Which is a big effect based on some small screws. So it sounds like Scorch RC Parts is going to pause some products from shipping to the US in response to that. Scorch RC Parts makes mainly like the Infraction 1/7 scale, some bow stuff, things like that. They also make really great content in case you're just into that speedrun world. I've owned a bunch of Scorch RC Parts. They're super nice stuff. Really enjoy it. And again, just something that I saw on their site, and it was something I did not know about, was this minimum fee, at least coming from them. I'm not sure where that lands everywhere, or if we're just going to see differences from all of these different places and companies because of that. The other one that I saw was from Boom Racing. Boom Racing said that they had some holidays that delayed some things, and then also some like power grid issues in China, where they're based out of, that caused some delays. So they only had a couple of shipping days for the week last week, and they were trying to get those products out as fast as they could before there was some effects that were going to come into place, which I thought that they all had been already, but evidently that wasn't fully the case and is just going to start coming into place here soon or now. They did say that many of their products, they may have to stop shipping to the US once the supply runs out here in the US. They do have a warehouse here. I believe it's in Arizona, but once that supply runs out, there may be a time when you're going to see a large, or a gap in their product line of things that you can get, or you're just going to see the large tax add-on that will be added to your order if you're ordering from overseas. So just a little bit of information there. I'm sure that that's something that we could see more and more often. Just trying to pass along some of that information.
And lastly for this week, I want to talk about somebody who you may know if you've been around the scene for a while, and that's Jerry Justice from Death Metal Garage, or the DMG. Jerry's been building custom chassis in our area for a really, really long time, like 20 plus years, goes back to nearly the beginning of when RC crawling started to become a thing. I think he kept track of the number of chassis since he very first started, and I think that it's been over 2,000 custom chassis. So there's a good chance that if you haven't owned one, you've probably seen one, or maybe interacted with one of his other parts, or just seen, one of the many things that he's built. Recently, Jerry got the news that nobody ever wants to get. When I moved to Kansas City in 2006, Jerry was the one who had stood up and kept KCRC, or the local club there. He was the one who did it all. He was the one who kept that going. And if there wouldn't have been that club in Kansas City to give me the place to, really dive into the hobby and grow and keep pushing and competing and having fun and meeting so many friends, I have no idea if I would still be doing RC today. And for that, and nearly 20 years of friendship, I owe Jerry a lot. With that being said, I'd like to ask that you guys go leave some words of hope and encouragement for Jerry, whether you know him personally or on his page or wherever. And this could annoy him that I did this, but if so, I'll gladly be happy to apologize. As always, everyone, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.